In every person's life, the question arises of how to obtain citizenship. For most foreigners, this is the path through the EU long-term resident card. Poland allows this process as a country that is part of the European Union. I consider this a fundamental video. In this video, we will discuss how to obtain a long-term resident card and why people often fail to get it. I also experienced such a situation, and I'm certainly not the only one. Let's break it down.
Yes, let's break it down. The EU resident status, as you mentioned, is indeed equivalent to permanent residency in Poland. This means it's an indefinite card issued for 5 years, and then you just need to renew it. Only the card itself. Only the card itself, exactly. When it comes to the requirements, I would even rewind a bit back in time. Why? Because when you get your first temporary residence permit, you already need to plan for obtaining residency. Consider that you are already approaching the resident card. You're already one step ahead, yes, and you should be looking towards obtaining residency. Why? Because there are certain requirements for obtaining resident status. We will discuss them in more detail now. If we talk about why you should look at the requirements you need to meet right at the beginning of the journey, one of the most crucial, probably concerns all businessmen right now, is the continuous place of enjoyment in Poland over the last 5 years. What does that mean? Well, continuously, that's unclear.
Well, it sounds a bit sketchy, right? But what about traveling to Spain or Bali?
Yes, it means that over a period of 5 years, your total trips abroad should not exceed 10 months, and a single trip should not exceed more than 6. And then it is calculated. If we want to go to Bali, we can fly to Bali for a month, no problem.
And please, return to base.
No, I was visiting.
Return to our lovely, gloomy Poland.
To all our clients who are obtaining their first residence permit, we recommend at this stage to start keeping calendars, where they note when, where, and for how long they have traveled. Why? Because you will need to write it down later. Because you will indeed have to include it in the application. When you apply for residency, you specify where, when you were, and for what period of time. And then the inspector sits and calculates all of it. If everything matches and you have 5 years of continuous residence, then we move on to the next point. You need to have a source of regular and consistent income for the last 3 years. What does this mean? This means that money should be continuously deposited into your bank account. Pay taxes, and then everything will be fine for you. They look at the period of the last 3 years before applying for residency. That is, if we are talking about the first residence permit, then another 2 years. It's possible there. You can try to establish a business or in fact work, change employers as you see fit.
Yes, an important point is that you apply for the card only after 5 years. You cannot apply for it earlier. That's exactly why you said that. In the first 2 years, you can still somehow find yourself, explore, test, but then you need to ensure there are no gaps in the months and you have a stable income.
A stable regular income, which the investor also asks you to confirm.
Let's go through all the criteria now, list them all, and then specifically highlight where people make mistakes. In other words, where things go wrong. Well, we'll cover the whole range, right?
Of course. You must have a language proficiency certificate at level B1, no lower.
We have a video on our channel where I took this exam.
On the first try?
Yes.
Be honest, how long did you prepare?
I'll do it. I prepared for exactly 1 month. But I prepared intensively. And how long had you been living in Poland before that? I had been living in Poland for 8 years before that. So you have a month of preparation? Yes, but my speaking was basically at the B2 level, definitely. B2? Yes, I was discussing philosophical topics with them very freely, and they stopped me and said, "That's it, leave, don't waste your time." But that's me. And most of the guys who watch us, they arrived recently.
Yes, so it's important to know that you will need to pass the exam and preferably pass it. The sooner the better. Put the certificate on the shelf.
And forget about it. When does the word part come later in the sentence? Roughly speaking, yes.
Naturally, you need to confirm that you have been living in Poland, and this is confirmed by your past rental contracts and by the monthly payment of taxes. In other words, we collect absolutely all declarations. for the upper period of living in Poland. If you are applying through business, then, of course, we show corporate taxes and all this financial history, including that of the companies. Okay, these are the main criteria. If you need clear checklists, what needs to be done, what documents to collect, we will leave a link to the checklist in the description below. Insurance. There must be social insurance, meaning either ZUS or private medical insurance. Please do not confuse it with the documents provided by Medicover or LuxMed. That's a subscription, medical. It's not insurance.
It's just, guys, it's your card, like for a gym. You have a subscription, just like a LuxMed subscription. Nothing more, right? Exactly. Great, you've watched up to this point, which means you're really interested in legalization in Poland. Support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and leaving a comment below. And if you want us to work on your legalization, on your case, then below. Under the video, you will find all the links. And let's continue watching the episode.
Well, naturally, you must have a place to live in Poland, a rental contract with your landlord or your own apartment.
And an important point is that you will apply based on your contract and place of residence. This means that people need to understand that if they have a contract in Warsaw, they will apply to the Warsaw office. If they live in Krakow, then to the Krakow office. And it doesn't work like you live in Warsaw but want to apply in Krakow, right?
What a pity. It's a pity, actually, because for some it would be a real lifesaver. Because living in Wrocław, people even temporarily move to Krakow. They rent apartments to apply specifically at their place of residence. Because Krakow and the Krakow office for foreigners is probably one of the best, most responsive and communicative. From this point of view.
And the documents, anything else regarding the requirements?
Regarding the requirements, probably not. We have listed all the most essential ones. If needed, it will be detailed exactly which documents, for which periods and where they need to be.
We'll leave it.
We will leave under the video.
Where do people make mistakes? Let's discuss. What's the issue? It all seems easy.
You could even place bets on this. The most common case, why can't the person apply for EU residency? It's the absence of a B1 certificate. And now, after the new year, in 2025, a law is expected to be passed that cancels the requirement to confirm language proficiency at the B1 level from a police school. So, in fact, a certificate from a police school will soon stop saving everyone. It's no secret that finishing a police school in Poland, this can be done very quickly and easily.
Somewhere with a crooked leg, you went there, it's unclear how. Yes?
The second most common case is when we cannot confirm regular income for the past 3 years. Anything can happen in business. Anything can happen in life. Sometimes there are breaks. Indeed, in work, when we don't pay taxes, we don't receive a salary.
You smile.
We are not able. Yes, absolutely.
What should people do in such a situation? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Let's say I worked and about 2.5 years ago I was fired, I was looking for a job, and I was out for a couple of months.
Any chances?
Yes. Because otherwise I have to wait another year again.
Yes.
And if I get fired this year, do I have to wait 3 years again? I mean, is there any chance to somehow work around it and get no, so it doesn't exist at all?
There are no ways to bypass the legislation because when the inspector takes your documents in hand, they have a clear directive to check for regularity.
Sees a gap, sorry. Okay, and even if 1 month is missing and she picks on it, maybe some kind of explanatory note?
Actually, a month is not as critical as a break of 6 months or 8 months. A month can be justified. It happens in the same business when we didn't record a profit or earn money in that month. Before the new year, as always, everyone goes on holiday. No one wants to receive invoices. They don't need anything. And this can be justified. So there is a tool. Yes, an explanatory note where we explain why we didn't receive it that month.
Look, here's another point. I was working at a job, and let's say I got fired and then I got sick. That can happen too. And it's kind of upsetting. You got sick, were ill for a month or two, didn't withdraw any money, and didn't find a new job.
Of course. Medical grounds where it will be clearly stated that you, due to health reasons, you were at home, couldn't work in any way, and were not able to work. These will also serve to justify why you had a break in income.
Next question. People often talk about incubators. What's going on with the incubators? Do they all actually get resident cards through incubators or not. In incubators, as we know, only the pity is paid, but not the US. No contributions for social security or health insurance are deducted.
They do get them, because there's no requirement to pay ZUS. There is a requirement to have health insurance.
Okay, so it's fine.
Yes. Incubators. Handle all the documents from the incubator.
Did you submit anyone?
Yes, we submitted people for residency, and there were absolutely no problems.
Great, wonderful. Where else do people have problems? What other issues are there? I think that they might incorrectly calculate the number of these days, and the inspector might recount and then nitpick about it, but it's not critical because you can just live a bit longer, like another half a year. Apply with a buffer. So not apply in the 5th year, but in 5.5.
Yes, it's not critical, but it's important to note here. If you stated certain dates in the application, but in fact the inspector recalculated, and you realize that you're missing 8 months, you won't be able to change it back. This is declarative in nature. You declared that you were absent for such and such a time here. You can't justify them differently. Moreover, for those who plan to obtain a residence permit in Poland, move to Spain, and live there for a year. I have an acquaintance who will be working in Poland. In fact, I wouldn't say that everyone is thoroughly checked. But there are cases, and we recently had such a case where we submitted a person's application, and the inspector, we submitted a statement that included what the client indicated. And the inspector gave us her version of where he was.
And where did she get it from?
No one knows. Honestly, I don't even want to think about how she obtained this data. Our client said that she was wrong. Since 2000, absolutely all departures have been recorded.
Interesting.
Therefore, it's very important to understand that if you resort to some tricks, it's not necessarily a fact that there will be a refusal, but it's a risk, which needs to be assessed in advance.
Okay, why else are people refused? Among your clients, where else do people have problems? It turns out the Polish language income, the Polish language, accurately calculate the number of days. Insurance? Yes. What else? Nothing.
Well, additional documents proving that you receive income in Poland and that it's enough for you to live here, right? That is for rent, living expenses for yourself, your family, and everyone else.
And we calculated in our videos back and forth around Warsaw, a standard family, me, my wife, a child, it's about 1,800, right?
Yes. That's approximately the figure it comes to.
It might be less. The main message for people is that it might be less, right? Like not 2,000, obviously, but it could be 6,000. This is already a question for the inspector and how you might correctly submit an application. Maybe write an explanatory note, something like that.
Or maybe you rent an apartment not in Warsaw, but outside of Warsaw.
Cheap, yes, cheap.
For 2,000 zlotys, and you have
You're welcome.
a family of 3 people.
You're welcome.
And it seems even a piateroka is enough.
And it's enough, yes. By the way, yes. Look, I would like to discuss this. This is a very subtle point where people think everything is fine, but there's a nuance here, and the inspector really grilled me for it. She says, you are obliged to declare support if someone is dependent on you, like the structure of your family. I say, yes, my wife, we got married in Poland right away. We received a Polish marriage certificate. She says, great, and let's calculate all my income and expenses. And she called me and asked a question like, what do you do? I say, well, this and that. She says, aha, okay. And what expenses do you have? And I'm like, well, I pay for accounting and for something else. She says, aha, so not much, right? I say, well, yes, not much. She says, well, look, you have a wife and you share all this between the 2 of you. So my income is kind of divided between 2, accounting for 2 people.
Did your wife also get residency?
She was getting a residence card at that time.
A regular one?
A regular one. Yes. And she says, you have 2 people, so the minimum, plus your wife, no children. Well, in short, she really emphasized this point.
Well, that's it. We're talking about the fact that your income should be enough to live in Poland, plus the minimum living expenses for everyone.
Yes, yes.
We discussed this.
We discussed this. Well, then, it turns out I just told the story so you would know. Oh, yes, this. No, you can say the moral of the story is this. It is this. If you have someone applying through you, the moral of the story is that if you are applying for a resident card at the same time, and your spouse is applying for a temporary residence card through you, you might not have enough income. They might deny both your resident card and your spouse's temporary residence card. So, yes, you need to keep track of your income.
You need to keep track of your income and also your expenses.
And your expenses. And it turns out you can play it smart in a good way. And if they ask you, if you have any other expenses, if you do, you can say no. I just pay for accounting, I just work as an IT specialist. No, I have no expenses. All pure profit. It's beneficial for you to have as much as possible recorded as pure profit.
Yes.
Vanya, can this whole situation be taken away annulled?
Yes, it can. And here...
Oh, really? That turns out to be unexpected.
Yes, suddenly. Good evening, as they say. Firstly, if you obtain residency in another EU country, the Polish residency will be annulled. If you have left the Schengen area for more than 12 months continuously, it will be annulled. If you exceed the duration of work outside the Schengen area for more than 24 months, the permit can also be annulled. So it's not something you get and then go traveling around the world, forgetting about Poland for 5 years. You might return, residency's gone.
Well, yes, and you'd like to forget, right? And have access to the EU. Okay, that's clear.
But there's also a perk. A good one, actually. EU residency can be changed within the European Union, but to another residency.
You mean for free?
Polish residency can be changed to French residency. You just need to show the same grounds as you had in Poland. I mean, you arrive, start a business, begin paying taxes, and then...
Or you get a job?
Or you get a job. Here I have a job or a business that provides a steady income. Here is my housing. I had Polish residency and I want French residency.
Because I want to.
But not in all EU countries. Not everyone can do this.
Okay, interesting case. Well, let's say I want to connect my life with Spain or France, right? And settle there.
Yes.
How does it work? What are the timelines for obtaining it?
The most accurate answer would be yours. You know firsthand how quickly this can be done. But in fact, the legislation states the following. From the moment of personal submission, there are 6 months for the administrative process review, after which a decision is made. And then, of course, there's additional time to collect the card. And tell me, how was it for you?
Well, for me, I applied in Krakow. I had such an opportunity and the process was quite fast. My case was taken up quickly. From submission to decision, it took 4 months. So not even 6, but 4 months. But that's Krakow, right? Yes, that's Krakow. I also signed up for the queue there, and I waited in line for about a month and a half. So overall, it still takes you about half a year. What does the resident card give? Because we understand that it's a stepping stone to citizenship, right?
Yes, exactly right. And it remains essentially 3 years from obtaining residency to Polish citizenship.
Or live in Poland for 10 years?
Or live in Poland for 10 years, and based on that, apply for citizenship.
Yes, having resident card?
Exactly right. It is inevitable. It is avoidable only in one case, when we apply for citizenship through a presidential letter.
By the way, this video was liked by the guys, the subscribers, and such a structure also exists. So essentially we have 2 ways or even 3 ways to achieve citizenship. The first is to apply directly to the president. The second is the process of obtaining a residence card, then a long-term resident card, and then citizenship. And the third is all processes related to ancestry. Well, that is, it's the card, the Poles card, and then the whole main story. And the fourth?
And the fourth, and the fifth. Firstly, you can obtain citizenship through marriage to a Polish citizen.
Yes.
But it will take some time. And there is also a procedure called repatriation. This is when you gather documents in your country of residence, submit them to the consulate, and apply for citizenship immediately. The procedure is one of the most complex, lasting about probably a year and a half. But there is a positive case where people obtain such citizenship.
Just like that. Thank you for watching this video. I believe it was useful for you, and if so, support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Below the video, there is a comment section. Ask your questions, discuss the episode, and we will be happy to answer your questions.